and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, as we gather for this meeting, let us take a moment to reflect on the meaning of place, and in doing so, recognize the various traditional lands on which we do our business today. We wish to acknowledge this land on which this SBC meeting is taking place. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Hohokam, the Akimel Odom, and most recently, the Salt River Pima Indian community. Today, this meeting place is still home to many indigenous people from across Maricopa, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on this land. Okay, today's meeting will begin with question and answer with Dr. Menzel, as we normally do, and then we'll hear from Dr. Praniski. Did I say that right? Sweet. Yeah, and about Title I and community specialists and many other wonderful things. We'll have some, if any reps have announcements, we'll have those, and then we'll end with some updates from the executive board. Okay, so if you have a question for Dr. Menzel, I have a little basket here. There's note cards over there. You can sneak some more into the pile. Okay. The composition of curriculum committees has come up at governing board meetings recently. Is it possible to offer hybrid attendance options to make it easier for parents juggling work and family to participate?
So that's a qualified answer. So the challenge with hybrid participation is that depending on where the meeting takes place, and it may have to move based on space availability, it's not always easy to get the technology to work. The technology is not always reliable. And it's when you try to do, if you participate in a hybrid meeting, it's difficult to be the observer on the outside watching in, but not being able to totally engage and participate. So it's not impossible, but I think it's a matter of looking at, can you logistically pull it off? And if we have enough participation, and we've had increased interest in participation recently, we likely have enough people on the committee to make it work without having to do the online, but I think that can always be something that's considered in the future.
Okay, there's a lot of information, accuracy, who knows, about school closings and repurposings going around the community. What is the best way to stay informed? And also, what kind of timeline are you looking at? Are there going to be public hearings?
Yeah, so
help.
So this one is and will be an ongoing issue of importance. So what I'll say here, I'm sure that there'll be different ways of interpreting it, but I hope that I'm clear. So as I think most of you know, Scottsdale Unified School District's been declining in enrollment for at least 15 years, since 2010. That's the last, when the demographic study was last done, that's the first date in the study going through 22, 23. And at that time, we had 26,000 students, and now K-5, we're under 20,000. And in that intervening period of time, in 08, 09, somewhere in there, Aztec and Zuni merged into Redfield, but there have been no other formal closings since then. So we lose 6,000 plus kids, but no building closings or repurposing. And we talk about repurposing because even if you close a school in terms of what's being provided currently, we want to talk about what's an appropriate use of that asset in the district, and so repurposing is the language we use. With our staff, I've communicated that there are at least 2 phases. I'm thinking now there'll be 3, but at least 2 phases related to this conversation. We have 2 schools this year that are below 300 students in their K-5 or K-8 population. And I established committees to be working on that conversation. On the October 7th governing board meeting, there'll be an agenda item because under Arizona statute, if you're considering closing or repurposing a school, the board has to set a date for a public hearing. That has to have at least a 10-day window in terms of the notice. After the public hearing, there has to be at least 10 more days before the board takes any final action. If you watch the governing board retreat, and there have actually been some other conversations, we talked about when you're looking at enrollment and the decisions that have to be made on the number of facilities that we're utilizing, we have to make decisions for the 26-27 school year by December of this year so that we can do the planning. So those conversations have started. There's a third conversation happening in phase 1, and it's really not about closing. It's more about really potentially repurposing, and that's a conversation around Desert Canyon Elementary and Desert Canyon Middle School. both on the same campus. They're both over the 400 threshold, which is where we had started talking about, when you fall below 400, the school isn't self-sustaining. It has to be subsidized. You're not bringing in enough revenue to pay for what it costs to operate the school. But the Desert Canyon Elementary, Desert Canyon Middle School, they're on the same parcel of land, but they have larger administrative structure than Cheyenne, which has 950 kids compared to the 850 kids at Desert Canyon Elementary and Middle School. So it's about the efficiency and operational efficiencies that we need to realize as well in their current budget constraints. So that's phase one. We don't know what the board will do, but on October 7th, that'll be the first time there's an action item related to the discussions around Pima and Echo Canyon. The phase two includes a lot more schools, and if you think about the schools that are near or below 400, or in that range, so we've got one K-8 that's got 441, we have to have conversations about what's the right number of schools based on the number of students that we have and anticipate, and how do we ensure that we're leveraging the resources we have to maximum impact? Because every dollar we spend on a building that's under capacity is money that can't be spent to increase pay for our employees, to address the rising cost of health insurance. And so some very difficult decisions are on the horizon for the governing board. Kicking the can down the road really isn't an option any longer. We've been able to make it this far because of some other positive financial trends in the district. So we had COVID funding, ESSER, and others that helped mitigate some of the decline in enrollment. We've had healthy cash balance accounts, but those have been spent down. And we're looking at some other competing cost pressures. I mean, the state hasn't even provided increases that keep up with the cost of inflation. So they've got a cap at 2%. We've had one anomaly in the time that I've been here where there was additional money provided by the state, but we don't anticipate that in the years ahead. So those are parts of the conversation. We'll have a new demographic study available probably in November, maybe a little bit sooner. That will also help us know if you use the Wayne Gretzky quote, we need to skate to where the puck is going, not to where the puck is. And so we have to be thinking about what is the right number of buildings to meet the needs of our students in SUSD and do it in a fiscally responsible way. We recognize that that has an impact on teachers, on support staff, on building administrators. They're really hard conversations. When I have to stand in front of a staff like I did with the Pima staff on Friday, I'll be with the Echo staff on Monday. Those are not easy conversations, but they're ones that we have to have, and we have to be really clear and transparent with our staff, our parents, and the larger community that the demographic and economic realities require some difficult decisions.
So for parents wanting to make themselves heard who might not be part of these phase one or phase two conversations, what can they do?
So we're working on putting together a specific link on our Let's Talk channel so that we can gather that information. So from a statutory perspective, the building's directly impacted, get specific notice, but there's an indirect impact on other communities. So think about Pima, for example. If the board were to move in a direction where we repurpose Pima, you have to do a redrawing of the boundaries. And that will impact 2 or maybe 3 elementary schools. You've got Navajo, you have Hohokam, and potentially Yavapai in the mix. And there are statutory requirements about how you do rebounding. Echo is not a boundaried school. It's an open enrollment school of choice, and so there's no boundary conversation there, but there is an important conversation about where do the students who are currently at Echo end up. And so lots of conversations about those things, and we want to hear from all of our stakeholders.
Okay, follow up. This is a nice segue. So how will the district ensure the Title I students from Echo Canyon don't lose access to the same level of academic support if and when the school closes?
So that's going to be, as we move from the first part of phase one, which is what will the board decide once they start on October 7th and make a decision not later than December 9th. The first part of phase two is execution of phase one, and it's really about having intentional conversations with the families of the students who are at Echo Canyon to find where an appropriate next opportunity within SUSD is. So we want to make sure that everyone finds a welcoming home within our district, And that's going to require individual conversations with families to say, okay, where do you live? Where is an educational program that might be best suited to meet the needs of your child? And so I think it's going to be that personalized outreach to families that will be the key.
Okay, why is graduation on the second to last day of school this year? Who creates the school calendars?
School calendars, the unlucky people who are assigned to the school calendar committee. And it's a thankless job, and it's a you never make everyone happy kind of position. But we actually do surveys of our staff and of our families after the proposed calendar comes out. And so the 3-year calendar was adopted more than a year ago. And when it was originally adopted, graduation was on Friday. In reflecting on the challenges of a Friday graduation for our Jewish population, this year in particular, we had a Jewish holiday, and graduation on a Friday night for observant Jewish families becomes problematic. So we want to avoid graduation on Fridays, period. That just is something we want to do that didn't get caught when the calendar was adopted. So we had a discussion, and the governing board approved moving graduation from Friday to Thursday in order to accommodate that interest. There was another request to say, well, really the holiday begins on that Thursday, so can you move graduation to Wednesday? And practically we couldn't do that. So we made a good faith effort to accommodate, and we really don't want graduations on Friday, but that was one that was not caught when the calendar was adopted.
When's the next calendar
So,
be created?
We have next year's calendar set, and do we have one more after that? Yeah, so the process starts at least a year before the last calendar. So, maybe in 15 months from the end of the last one, the conversations will start.
Okay. We have time for one more question. Will the governing board be voting on the new district booster guidelines?
No, so the governing board has a policy, and then the regulations are developed by the administration, and the governing board has an opportunity to review, ask questions, and they've been sent the booster guidelines, but they don't formally approve regulations, they only approve policy.
Okay. All right, thank you
You sure
so
there's
much.
no other questions, really?
Yeah.
All right.
Hold on.
Last year, one of the schools that was going to be closed, there was talk that the school was going to, or the district was going to sell it to Phoenix Rising. What ended up happening with that? It's kind of in the same thread or vein as the other schools closing. So is that what we're going to do, is sell some assets, which probably are pretty valuable?
I don't believe there was a conversation about selling an existing school. That was the 68th and Oak property. Phoenix Rising was interested in it. It's the former home of Tonalea Elementary, but it was not a current building. I at least as long as I'm here, I will not be the one who recommends selling any of our school properties, our school buildings. Now, there are some properties that we have that we could consider. So, for example, there are non-school facilities that if we sold them, it could be useful, but that money is limited in terms of how you can use it. It goes into a plant account and can only be used for facility purposes. So it doesn't help offset our operating expenditures. The other schools, that's when we think about repurposing. We have a number of assets where we're leasing them out. So if you go up off of Frank Lloyd Wright in Vialinda, you've got the old Choya campus. And so we've got Stars operating out of there, the Miracle League. We have a rental with a charter school that's serving some students with significant disabilities. You have other people who are renting from the district, and so there are ways to bring in revenue with assets that are no longer being used as schools. The former Apache Elementary, we have some rentals, plus we have our southern bus compound on that location. So we're looking at what is the best use of those things, but selling in particular is a different issue than leasing, right? Generating ongoing revenue versus one time when you then can't get that land back and there's, the price of land continues to go up. We're going to think about how we use it. There could be some creative ways of repurposing, but that allow the district to retain ownership for future use depending on if anything changes demographically. Does that make sense?
Hi, question about language instructors. So I know this has been a challenge for a while. It was a challenge last year. When we asked the question last year, what was being done to fill those roles? I think you said you were looking outside of the country for teachers. I know a lot of the different schools are having to move to online. So are there any new ideas, new initiatives to bring in teachers besides that one?
So those are the two fastest ways to get teachers, either do the online, which we have capacity to do, or bring in a foreign language instructor. That process is a little slower now because of other questions about immigration and how you process paperwork and how quickly paperwork gets processed. It's a hard thing, and it's a shortage area where it's a surprise to me, at least in Spanish, where you think in the Southwest we'd be able to get more, but it's been more of a challenge than we would have anticipated. And it's not new to Cheyenne, Mountainside Middle School, Anasazi. They all had problems over the last 3 to 5 years in finding individuals qualified to teach Spanish. So it's an ongoing effort on our part, but not an easy solution.
Okay, this has to be the last question for time.
You are very clear on your phase 1 dates, but then phase 2, you were like, we're going to talk about it.
Okay, so, thank you. Yeah, yes, I did just kind of drift off on that. So phase 2, the way that I've structured it, so phase 1 is decision points for implementation in 26, 27. The phase 2 is really thinking about 27, 28. There's an argument, a legitimate argument, to say our budget hole is so big we should move more quickly. I know that communities need time to process and think about any change of order of magnitude of reducing the footprint of schools. And so phase 2 allows more time to think about the number of kids in those schools that are at or below 400 and what restructuring might look like that ensures that we've optimized enrollment on a campus so that we're not paying for half-used buildings. That make sense? And then a phase 3 would go beyond the 27, 28 years. So think about the phases as which school year we're going to implement.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you for letting me come. I appreciate your attendance here. Good luck, Dr. Praninsky.
All right, good morning, everybody. Come on, work, check, check. All right, here we go. All right, well, good morning. My name is Dave Pernisky. I'm the Director for State and Federal Programs. First off, I want to thank you for allowing some time today to meet with Scottsdale Parent Council and just be here and talk a little bit about the different state and federal programs that we are able to utilize here within Scottsdale schools. Just a quick introduction. My start in SUSD was on around 1981-ish as a kindergartner over at Pueblo Elementary School. I'm an SUSD alum. Any SUSD alums here? Thumbs up. Awesome. I was sharing my story with Piper. I served as a teacher for over 10 years. I was actually a Spanish teacher at the high school level. I served as a school principal here in Scottsdale in a couple different capacities with Ingleside and Tonalea, Yavapai. And so I also put a quick pic of my kiddos in here. These are next gen SUSD kiddos. Those two little guys are actually now kindergartners at Pueblo Elementary School. And yes, that's right, we have 6 kiddos here in Scottsdale schools. So, just to start out by giving a high-level overview, I work on a team of honor around 10 individuals in our state and federal department here at central office. And these are the areas that we oversee and lead. So Title 1A, I'm going to go into depth on these. This is really federal funding that supports our Title I schools that qualify or are eligible for Title I funding. Title II, Title III, Title 4A, Title 4B. We work with our Native American education programs, which is Title VI in Johnson O'Malley. We support homeless students through our McKinney-Vento with the Arizona Department of Education. We also lead work surrounding our SUSD innovation grants. Those are mini grants. The application's actually live. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I was here last spring to speak with a couple of our friends on our team about community specialists. Those are our liaisons across Scottsdale that serve to support our families and partnerships within the city of Scottsdale. And then we also support an ATSI grant that's for subgroups. We currently do not have any schools in Scottsdale that qualify for subgroup performance, but we have in the past. And then we also support our SUSD translation services. So I'm going to dip into each of these topics and just kind of give a high-level overview of what the funds do and areas that we serve. Our work on our team is really rooted in our district vision and mission. Our mission as part of our state and federal team is really to support those closest to our kids. That is our job. That is to maximize the funds that we receive on a federal level to ensure that we have world-class future-focused learning. Our work is also rooted in our district core values, two that really stand out, I think, in terms of our work and our team is the core value of inclusion and also unity. Our department connection to the mission, we really are here to support and our kiddos who, where we can really level the playing field using some of these federal funds to make sure that all kids have access and are able to enjoy all the different things that we have to offer here in Scottsdale. Just to give a little overview on Title I, the purpose of Title I or Title I-A is really to support academic achievement. So through our Title I-A funding, we receive on or around $2 million in initial allocation through Title I-A. Typically around October, we get our carryover funds. That's somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000 additional, $500,000 that we get additionally. That's carryover from the year previous. That money really goes to support three main areas. One is we offer a full-time specialist, a reading specialist in each of our Title I schools, so that's 10 full-time positions. In addition, we offer pre-K tuition assistance to all of our elementary Title I schools. We work in partnership with our friends over in community education. So when a family is enrolling into a Title I pre-K program, if they are income eligible, they will receive tuition assistance to attend that pre-K, and I'll talk a little bit more about eligibility in a minute. And then the remaining funds go to our Title I principals in terms of their site allocations. Site allocations are going to depend on how many students qualify for free and reduced lunch within those buildings. We have a formula to give out our site allocations. And then as part of all our grants, most grants have what's called a mandatory set-aside. So we have mandatory set-asides to support family engagement and homeless, just to name a few. How do schools qualify? So it really comes down to census data. So when we do a federal census, that data is taken, and then states are given their allocation based on poverty levels as measured through our census data. And then once those funds are appropriated and given to states, the Arizona Department of Education distributes the funds to school districts based on how many students they have who are income eligible. Right now in Scottsdale, we have on or around 25% of our students in Scottsdale who qualify for free or reduced lunch. And so based on those numbers, that's how we get our funds or allocation from the state. Once we get our share, then we set those funds up towards the things that I just mentioned, our pre-K, our Title I specialists, and our site funds and our mandatory set-asides. So just to talk a little bit about qualification, this is a pretty common question for Title I. So we have families who may qualify for Income Eligibility 1 or Income Eligibility 2. These are based on federal poverty levels. And so, for example, if a family of 4 qualifies if their income is on or below $40,000 a year, this student would qualify for free lunch. If that family of 4 was on or below, or in between $40,000 and $57,000 per year annual income in the household, then they would qualify for reduced lunch. And so based on those numbers, we collect that. I myself as a parent, you'll get that as part of your, typically your annual verification, or when you go to your back to school, there will be paperwork provided for our families so that we can support our kiddos with either free or reduced lunch. We also have 4 schools in Scottsdale who qualify for community eligible. This means that all of our students receive free breakfast and free lunch. This is a state of Arizona piece whereby if we have schools, or excuse me, if once the state identifies a school with families, 40% or more of families that qualify for food stamps, temporary assistance, FDPIR, if they're foster children homeless, if we have buildings that are above 40% as identified by the state, then districts are then eligible to apply to become a community eligible provision school. And so in partnership with our nutritional services director, Patty Bilbrey, we went ahead and did that because we were notified by the state that we had 4 schools that would be eligible, and those 4 schools qualified, and therefore those students receive free breakfast and free lunch. We still collect income eligibility data in those buildings because for the purpose of the grant and my team, we still need to be able to report those numbers to the state. So we have a process for doing that despite families still receiving free meals. I wanted to take a moment. I would imagine that this is maybe on folks' mind just in the nature of this presentation in terms of the future of federal funding freezes. As you may be aware, our U.S. Department of Education withheld on or around $6.8 million in federal education funds that had already been approved by Congress. They were frozen for on or around a month or so. They freed up right around July 25th, right before school started. And that was for programmatic review by the Department of Education to ensure that funds aligned with new administration priorities. These are the following funding streams that were frozen. You may have seen this or may have read about this in the news. So Title C. Scottsdale does not qualify for Title C. We do not manage that grant. That's specifically for migrant education, typically school districts who have larger farming or transitional farming communities receive that grant. Title IIA does affect us. We do receive that. I'm going to talk about that. That's for teacher and leader professional development. Title III also affects us. That's our ELD, or English Language Development supports. Title IV, Scottsdale utilizes Title IV funds. That's to support health and safety, technology, and fine arts. And Title IVB is our 21st century. That would have affected us as well. Again, those funds were released by the federal government to the states on or around July 25th. And so school districts across Arizona receive those funds to continue the work in these areas this year. Just to give you a couple highlights of some of these grants that we manage. So Title VI, that is a federal grant. Sheila Cypress is our Native American Education Program Coordinator. You may know that name. That's on or around $100,000. In addition to Johnson O'Malley is about $19,000. We have on or around 500 students who identify as Native American here in the school district, and so those funds are in direct support of them. A lot of that funding goes into family involvement initiatives, academic achievement, work where we have specialists in some of our schools to help our Native American students, specific to summer school and high school graduation. Title III, so we have on or around 800 students in Scottsdale who qualify for English Language Development Services. This is a considerably a smaller grant that's on or around $80,000 we receive from the Arizona Department of Education. This supports, a big chunk of it goes to supporting the summer school program at Hohokam Elementary for our kids who are learning English, in addition to parent-family engagement, training and resources for our ELD specialists, our teachers who are in the field working with our kids. Title 4A, student support and academic enrichment. We work in partnership with Michelle Irvin, who's our district fine arts coordinator. With this funding, it's on or around $100,000 that we will receive from the Arizona Department of Education. We're able to do artist residencies. This is for all of SUSD. I should have said Title 2A is for all of SUSD as well, not specific to Title I schools. Supports with partnerships with the Kennedy Center, and then professional development opportunities for our fine and performing arts staff. Title 4B, currently we have 5 schools who qualify for the 21st century, or we have written the application for: Hohokam, Ingleside, Pima, Tavan, and Tonalea. This supports before and after school programming. This is free to all students who reside in the boundary of the school. Just a quick little shout out, we had a friend at Pima Elementary, that's her artwork. She was honored at the board, I think last week, for making it to the Department of Education 21 CCLC handbook. They had a contest, we had a Pima kiddo win that. These grants are on a 5-year cycle. Each of the buildings will receive on or around $500,000 to support before and after school enrichment and intervention for kids. We have 2 schools, I think Ingleside and Tavan are both in the 5th year of their cycle. It is a competitive grant. We will reapply, Scottsdale will reapply for these in spring 2026. McKinney-Vento services. So we have a Title I set-aside that supports, it's a mandatory set-aside from the grant that supports our homeless students. That is a whole other component of ADE that supports homeless youth here in Arizona. We do have a liaison, Melissa Medvin, who we work very closely with. Typically when families enroll and they identify as homeless, then they will be routed to Melissa, and then she'll go through an application to see if they qualify for MKV services. And then we're able to support those students through different avenues, such as summer school, intervention, sports fees, things like that. One other space that we work in is our Innovation Startup Grant. So you may have seen we have 15 teachers across Scottsdale over the past 2 years who have earned the grant. It's a $10,000 grant. This is really designed for teachers, by teachers, so they staff across Scottsdale can submit an application for an innovative idea. We have a team of on or around 20 people here in Scottsdale, to include myself. We in fact are meeting, I think, in 2 weeks. The grant application closes next week, and then we meet the following week. We evaluate the applications, and then we're able to kind of kickstart some of these innovative ideas that we have across Scottsdale from our staff. So we've done a lot of cool work in this arena. Anasazi's done a project. We've had 2 at Tavan, Tonalea, Pueblo, Echo Canyon, a couple areas in the district where our innovation projects have kicked off.
David, what were some of those examples?
Right on. So like Pueblo did, I think I put that up there. Pueblo did like a college and career activity where they brought partners in from the community to speak with the kids. Echo Canyon, I tell you, robotics and coding are trending super hot right now with our kids and our teachers, and so we've seen a lot of that. There was a Tech Tinkers where they did some coding. Tonalea did a drone coding via their STEM classes, their elective STEM classes. Mountainside, Daniel Reinhardt, he did a project called Transportation Reimagined. He did zero-gravity vehicles up there with his 7th and 8th graders. So again, it's really some kickstart funds to help teachers get that idea going that they have, that their principal or their school may not have a line item. As a former principal myself, sometimes my teachers would come to me and say, "Hey, Dave, I have a really cool idea." And I'd be like, oh, I don't have a spot for that in my budget, or that I don't have funds that I can directly use for that. And so this money really kind of opens up that pathway for our teachers to think differently about what's going on in their classroom. Our community specialists, so we spoke about this a little bit in the spring. So these are assigned to all SUSD schools. And in fact, I don't know if Kim shared this. I did bring, if you want to snag one on the way out. Oh, right on. I did bring just a list. You may be interested, depending upon what school you're at, like who is my community specialist. I brought that last time I met with SBC, but our community specialists, they're all bilingual. We have one community specialist per each of our Title I schools, and then every complex has one. So for example, like Chaparral, if you're in the Chaparral complex, you may know Tom Gannon. He's been around for a long time. These individuals are really that direct support to our families in need. And so, like last year when I came out and spoke, sometimes when those needs pop up, and they pop up in different areas, like our kids could tell the nurse that they have a need, or their teacher. It's usually a person of trust that they have in their building that they may report something to. And so these individuals are really there to help connect the dots, right? You know, I will just tell a personal story. I was in a situation where I had a mom call me, and she was in transition with 3 kids. She had just been evicted from her current place of residence, got into another spot, needed a bed. I had worked with my bed and couple pieces of furniture. I called up my community specialist, and we got her hooked up in less than 12 hours. We're super fortunate to be in Scottsdale. We have such a great partnership with the city of Scottsdale. We did a backpack drive at Pima Elementary this year. We served over 1,000 families. That was such a cool partnership with the city of Scottsdale and the Scottsdale Public Library to get our kids hooked up for all the gear they need to start the school year. We also do a monthly partnership with the United Food Bank, and so we do, for food scarcity, we support families in need on a monthly basis with a drive-through food pickup in collaboration with the United Food Bank here in Scottsdale. And then our translation services. So we are very, very fortunate in Scottsdale to have Parent Square, which does a lot of the translation. I remember myself as a teacher having to go through like a district translation department and getting everything translated. Now, contingent upon what our parents click as their home language, they'll receive communication from the school in the language of their that they identify when they enroll, which is cool. So the communication from principals, teachers, that makes it a lot easier to have that two-way communication. We still do have translation set up here in the district for if there's legal documents, such as IEPs or things like that. Any sort of written translation can still be submitted. And then Luis and Claudia, they are out in buildings daily to support live interpretation for IEPs, 504 meetings, different district events, family engagement events. We also partner with a vendor called Voyance. They are an on-demand translation service, so teachers can call a number and they can get any language they need with a job code if they're working. I've used it many a time with families who speak Vietnamese or Italian or French or whatever. So but our in-house is directly Spanish translation. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about the impact. There's so many ways to measure impact. You know, when it comes to our funding, but our last meeting that we had with our Title I specialists, I had asked them to reflect on a kiddo who's been positively impacted by Title I funds, share the story of how these resources have made a difference, #BecauseKids. So again, I started this presentation with our work is really rooted in getting the supports needed to our kids across Scottsdale. Just to share a couple highlights, nationally distinguished Title I school, Echo Canyon. This kiddo started a reading group last year. He was on the cusp of reading to learn. Thanks to the teamwork of his teacher, speech pathologist, volunteers, parents, he made an amazing progress. By the end of the year, he reached his reading benchmark goal of proficient. So we have Kim Ortega-Lee. She's our Title I specialist over at Echo. This 4th grade Falcon, through Tier 2 reading intervention, student leadership, they do an ASA Spring Academy, which is an appropriate use of it's a good Title I fund expenditure where we can set up different tutoring services for our kids prior to state testing. They call it ASA Spring Academy, 21st Century Club. She's grown into a positive, committed, respectful leader at Hohokam. IMS with Dr. Michael and the legendary Ronnie Schultz. They offered, through their Title I funding, a virtual summer school and reading and math summer school program. This is this past summer. Students supported 3 times a week. 2 future 8th graders featured here work with Mrs. O'Malley. Made tremendous growth starting the year at grade level, ready to crush 8th grade. Mojave Middle School, Carly Johnson, she was new, so I took this opportunity to show my gratefulness as a Mojave parent. You may recognize him for the first slide. That's my own kiddo at Mojave. He's a 7th grader. And I just said thank you for the benefits we've been able to offer him through reading intervention to continue success. Mr. Patzloff and Dr. Border over at Navajo. This individual received Tier 2, Tier 3 reading intervention, strong support from staff. By year's end, he showed over 1 year's growth on the Fast Bridge assessment, which is one of our district assessments. Pima, 2 Panthers gained confidence through, they have a Title I reading clubhouse, and they also have 21st century summer programs, grew as readers, role models. Now they're helping to run family engagement nights at Pima. They passed ASA with flying colors. Tavon Elementary, also noteworthy, they were nominated for National Distinguished Title I School as well. They were in the running last year. This Wildcat, new to Tavon, received tiered reading intervention, also in part of the 21st Century program. She's shown 1 year's growth, gained confidence. Her family has been such a great partner with Tavon. Tonlia Middle School, these are my old stomping grounds here. This tiger actively involves in 21st century, also sports programs, continues to maintain A's and B's. What's cool at the middle school level for Ingleside and Tonlia, part of the 21st century program, they can bring all their student athletes in after school, and as part of that club, they can do homework help before they go to their sport, which keeps them on track to be eligible to play, which is good stuff. Yavapai Elementary, this student, once in tiered reading intervention, which they call SOAR time during the day, showed 1 year's growth in reading, excels in math, participates in 21st century, Thunderbird rock star. And then tons of cool stuff going on at Coronado High School. Principal Splittick, I'm actually going to see her after this meeting. And Mark Smith, title specialist. They have their jobs for Arizona graduates. We also, in partnership with the Charos and the Coronado Foundation, they have the Coronado Promise, which is a scholarship for in-state for their graduating seniors. In addition, Coronado kicked off the Fire Science Academy, which has gotten traction from not only within the district, but other areas around Scottsdale. And then this was celebrated, I think, at the board too. They're the first high school in Arizona to become a blue zone school. So they had that celebration, I think, about 2 weeks ago. So tons of information. I'm happy to do some Q&A just about the areas that we serve, if there's any questions. But thank you for allowing me to be here and speak on behalf of our programs. Go ahead.
So I'm going to run around with the microphone because otherwise people can't hear on the live stream.
So I see that there's lots of different designations for title funding, but what are specifically the Title I schools in our district? What are their names? And I mean, are there 4? Are there 10 for Title I specifically?
So right now we have 10 buildings that qualify for eligible for Title I funding. This means that on or above 40% of the student enrollment is income eligible for free or reduced lunch. So we currently have 10 schools.
And were those the ones that were just featured?
Correct,
Okay,
yep.
okay.
Yep.
And then what's the trend that you're seeing? Is that number of people that are eligible for free and reduced lunch, is that number trending up?
Great question. So nationally and statewide, the answer is yes. Here in Scottsdale, we're remaining relatively flat. Post-COVID, we had a little bit of an uptick. It depends on what building that you look at. So all of the school principals will have income eligibility data. We hover on or around 24, 25% as a district. with some schools kind of hopping up and down. So yeah, but we're
But it's stayed
relatively
pretty stable,
we're
at least in
relatively around
Scottsdale.
there. Yeah.
Okay.
Keep in mind though, just on that note, like thinking about all Arizona children, when the state receives Title I funding, just because Scottsdale may stay around 25%, that doesn't mean that other districts aren't increasing. And the pot's only so big. So the ADE can only have so much money. And so since I've been in this role, this is year 3 for me. My first year, our initial allocation was reduced by 20%. This past year, our allocation was reduced by 10%. So we've seen a 30% reduction here. And that is due to just how big the pie is, right? Like when more Arizona kids qualify for are income eligible than funds are, there's only so much money. They're distributed based on need to our LEAs. Does that make sense? Other questions? Yes.
Is the money that was reduced, is that federal or state or both?
Well, it originates from the federal government, but then it comes through our state Department of Education. So I think really to answer your question, that would be, it depends also what the ADE, like for example, again, their distribution of that federal funding is going to be based on need across Arizona. So it's kind of both. The money's going to come from the federal government, but the ADE has to make decisions based on allocations, priorities, et cetera.
Do all the schools who qualify for Title I take that label, and does it matter?
Yes, so a school becomes eligible when they're above that 40%. So any school though, however, that is above what is the district average. So if we have schools that are, let's say, in between 25% and 40%, they are technically Title I schools. They're just we're not eligible to receive the school-wide funds because they haven't hit that 40%. But that's kind of the rule of thumb in terms of being Title I. If you're above whatever your district income eligibility rate is, you're technically considered that. But it's not until you hit that 40% mark that we apply for the grant and receive the funding.
I had one more question about assistance. So if you are part of a school or a PTO that has students that, and I think every school in the district has students that are considered free and reduced lunch. So I know that there are confidentiality concerns, but when parents or PTOs want to assist those students in other ways, how can they do that? How do you recommend they do that? Because my understanding is because of confidentiality, and rightfully so, their information can't be shared, and so there's just this disconnect between how their own community can help them, and because I think it just kind of just ends up on the district. They're on a list, and so the district has lots of programs that are helping them, but I know that both of the schools that my children attend, we would love to step in and help as well. How can we do that?
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit last spring too. So again, kids are I'm gonna kind of work backwards on this. Kids are gonna have different people of trust in their building, right? And when they report something to an adult in terms of need, right? That adult has a couple of avenues they can go down, and that could be anybody. I mean, each of our Scottsdale schools have social workers, we have SROs, we have, all of our principals. And so I think if the need can't be met, let's just say by your community specialist, let's just say we're at Chaparral High School, we call up Tom Gannon and say we need ... He goes out to our massive network here in Scottsdale and he can't find said resource. I think that's an opportunity potentially for the PTO to step in. So my encouragement would be to consult with your school principal on that in terms of a system for identifying who those kiddos are, and when that need pops up, that could be a direct communication between principal and PTO.
So it's less about specific needs and more about overall, like over the holidays, we'd like to provide gifts for them.
I can chime in.
Piper, do you?
Okay, so hi, Bree Gillette. I'm with Sequoia's APT, and we every Christmas do what do we call it? Like the kids in need, like gifting, right? We provide them with presents. We wrap them, we provide them. The way that we do it is Tom Gannon is housed at our campus, so it's really easy. I see him all the time. But he will compile a list. He doesn't include names, and so I just get a list of like, the kid is, yep, it's a boy. They like trucks and cars and whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I guess each school, I guess it depends. Like, we have Veronica Leeper on our campus. She's our principal. She loves this, and she's fully supportive of us doing this. And so we just coordinate with Tom. And so he's actually just started this week reaching out to teachers. What are the needs? Because it's not always so obvious, you know. So, yeah.
So I was going to tell another way. Arcadia does something a little bit proactive, and this might not work for for elementary, but they have a grant, and they advertise it in the PTO newsletter, so to parents, and I'm pretty sure you advertise it to students too. And it's just say, hey, they don't try to evaluate need, but they put out a grant, and so it's for things like renting your instrument or AP, anything related to schools, like AP tests, dual enrollment fees, all that. So they just say, hey, if you need help with this, you can apply for this grant, and kids just apply. So they circumvent, they kind of sidestep the whole process of trying to identify who needs it and just put that out there. And then the way that they funded this is pretty ingenious too, and Piper did it even though she doesn't want to talk. But so they have like a CD, so it's interest rolling off of something in the bank account. So it's like, in terms of their budget, it's very sustainable in the long term.
Hi, I'm Ashley. So I'm also a Title I for Navajo. So we did the very similar to Sequoia. We call it our Buffalo Wish Tree. So I work very closely with Angelita, and again, privacy, right? So she essentially knows those children very well. And, you know, I also offered for all of our teachers in privacy, you know, go to Angelita, she will have a list. She numbers them. I make a buffalo like out of a cricket, and that child has a number, and we put theirs so that when they bring their presents, it correlates. But the other thing that we do as PTO is at the beginning of the year, she'll give us a list. We're very big on, I'm sure every school, Pride on Fridays, and she'll give me a sizing of all the t-shirts that she thinks of families that could use it. So PTO also does that. I did have a family come up to me this year, which this is new, and obviously, again, privacy, for lunches, because some families might get behind if they're even on reduced. So PTO is trying to help coordinate that. Maybe if the cafeteria, Miss Kathy, tells us a number, and then we raise enough funds, and then we'll go ahead and buy all of the, you know, negative accounts for the children. So those are a couple ways that we do it. But, you know, we don't want to know specifics, obviously, just helping the community. But I'm pretty open with all of my teachers, and if they know of anybody or anything, we'll just vote on it and we'll buy it, like a bed or something like that.
So I need to follow up on this, but last meeting, Patty Bilbrey mentioned that there is an account that anyone could deposit money into that then kind of goes into and available for the entire school. So my bad, I will follow up on that and send that out. But that may be another way that we could be proactive about offering something. Okay, I'll still follow up on it because I don't even know what the app is, but.
The link app. So our school every November does some kind of food drive. Last year we did a toiletry drive for the community closet that they have. Is there something, instead of going to like St. Vincent de Paul or whatever, is there something within the school that we can do our drive for this year to donate to, or is the community closet the best place?
Yeah, what school are you at?
We're at Redfield.
Okay, yeah, the community closet's probably the best bet, and our community specialists are linked on that too, in terms of when we receive donations, they'll share amongst each other within their community closets. I would probably say that's your best route, is to continue to use that resource.
Hi, I'm new here, but I am here specifically for the Title I information and wanting to know for future Title I funding from federal government, knowing that maybe it is decreasing continuously over the next few years. How can we as parents, community members, employees be proactive in trying to make sure we are securing those Title I funds for these schools who are in desperate need of it?
That's a great question. You know, one of the biggest things that we can could use support on, I would say, is at the beginning of the year when we have our income eligibility opportunities, that's through the Titan portal, is to really continue to offer that, because sometimes families may not know that they may be eligible or qualify, and so when we receive our allocations from the state, that's a way to ensure that we're getting needs met across Scottsdale. So I would say that would be first and foremost. I'm not anticipating, so Title 1A right now, I'm not anticipating any funding increase on that. Let's just say that. I think we'll likely remain flat. So Scottsdale, given our current income eligibility numbers, like I shared, we received an initial allocation of on around $2 million and then around 500,000. So it's around 2.5. That will likely go down. We are going to continue to get our needs met for our kids who, in particular for our buildings who qualify. Our obligations to ensuring the pre-K tuition assistance component, critical, right? We need to continue to make sure we get that obligation met. Anybody who has served or worked in a Title I school will tell you that it's about people and not programs. Human resources are probably one of the most valued treasures in our buildings. And so the funding of the Title I specialists that we're able to do, I'm committed to continuing to make sure that we have that resource installed. That may mean, these are decisions that we're going to need to make with funds, right? That may mean that if we continue to fund one thing, if our principals prioritize one thing, then that may mean less in the site budget. I think going to your question, how can you help ensuring that, we're continuing to work through your communication streams on the income eligibility forms that we roll out. But then I love hearing this conversation about continued collaboration with your community specialists. I mean, that's really the name of the game of this employee group, right? And they are fantastic at it. We have a really great group of people working by our side, and these people are these staff are so well connected within Scottsdale. It's amazing. So they've been doing it a long time, and so I think just that partnership, that bridge with you, community specialist and school principal, and then being that we live in this amazing city, we're going to continue to be able to get the job done for our kids. We still do have those partnerships. Yeah, did I send you that? Maybe? Okay. So yeah, we do have a page. In fact, we talked about it last spring. There are partnerships that exist between schools. I see a couple heads nodding. And so I can re-share that
So in the
with you.
recently, what SPC did is we just got people in the room together for, we got those partnerships sitting and looking at each other together, which is then how the ball starts rolling.
Yeah. So
There were assignments, yeah.
correct.
And I think they still exist.
They still exist, yep. And I think where I left off when I met you last year was that I think some relationships between sister schools have existed for quite a while, and they're strong, and others, I remember a parent had said, Dave, I'd love to rekindle that, you know what I mean, and connect with either principal, et cetera. So I'm happy to facilitate that once we kind of send that info out of who's connected with who. If you want me to help connect the dots on that, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah. And then we'll schedule an event and get people the opportunity to meet in person.
I have another question. So we lost the 21st Century grant. So is that a district application? I know Matt does it and Jamie Warder does it, but is there any way that PTO can help on it? Or I know it's
100%. I just met with Matt on
Okay.
that actually last week.
our
So-
community's sad.
What's that?
I said our community's
I
pretty
know,
sad.
it
It's
is
a
such a-
big thing that helps our school.
Huge opportunity.
Right.
So we did apply.
Okay.
Again, we need to remember that this grant is super duper competitive.
Yeah.
And they are prioritizing, ADE is really prioritizing rural. They're prioritizing ATSI, CSI, schools that are in corrective action. And so it's a tough grant to get right now, but I have some thoughts. And so I was talking with Matt. We are going to reapply for Navajo. We are going to, if we have any Yavapai families here, I want to make sure we get an application back in for Yav too, because they lost it as well.
Do you know the number? Like, I know it's one, sorry, like, what would be the number you would put on like per school for the grant? Like if we got a portion or if like one school took half, is that a possibility or is it just has to go to the school? So if like PTO offset, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of a number, like 10 grand, right? Like if,
That's a great question. So it is.
which I know
kind
our
of-
taxes can sometimes help into that. That's why we're huge at our school where, you know, if you put in that site cancel, right? So that's
100%.
normally our funds for our, I'm blanking, the bus, field trips.
Field trips, yeah.
Correct, right?
And it can support after school. So like as a former principal myself, not having 21st century, tax credit is another appropriate fund to use to do before and after school care. We can pay certified staff out of tax credit to engage in clubs or intervention, et cetera. But yeah, it is 1-to-1, so there's no real offset there. So it is a grant per school, $500,000, 5 years. It's just getting tougher and tougher to get. Once upon a time, Scottsdale had, I think, on around 10, 11 schools that qualified. But again, the need in our state has increased. And so it's highly competitive.
Right here. Hi, I'm from Ingleside. Are we going to apply for Ingleside?
Yes, so Ingleside, and they're in year
Oh, boy.
5. So that's a journey that I'm about to start with Dr. Michael. So part of that grant application, honestly, is it's planning. It's a lot. So we're going to start early.
So what you're saying, each school gets $500,000 over 5 years.
Over
It's
5 years.
Not $500,000 for all the schools in Scottsdale. That
Negative 500
Okay.
per building.
per
Yep,
building.
per building over 5 years. And they give you a big chunk right in year 1, and then they slowly dwindle down. So
When does that process start for applying?
great question. So the application's not open up until the end of January. I had told Mr. Patzloff that I'm going to start connecting with his leadership team or site council or however he wants to do that. The beginning of second quarter, we're going to start taking it chunk by chunk. Make sure we get it right.
Any other questions? No. Okay, I have the community specialist papers over here, and I will send it. I have it on digital too, so I can send that out on email. But thank you so much
Thank you.
for talking. Okay, so a lot of you in this room and other people are about to get an email asking for school reps for your school. So I'm going to really quickly go over what those are. So you are basically a connection between this meeting, which often includes district administration, as you've seen, and your school. So you can kind of come with questions. You can come with, share things that are going well in your campuses that you think other schools might be interested in. And then you can also take back information that you learn at these meetings. So they're really important. Like, if we had to answer what is SPC in one word, it's really that's 2 words. It's really the school representatives. So they're really important. So we're about to send an email to PTO, PTA, APT leaders at each school and the principal. And our hope is that you guys will have a conversation and then give us 1 or 2 names that can represent your school. It really is kind of a choose your own adventure. If you can't come to a meeting, we do live stream them all. If you have any questions, I can answer them or help you find someone who knows the answer. And then in the spring, we'll ask you to vote on behalf of your school for future SPC exec boards. Hopefully you all know this. We're a nonprofit Arizona Corporation 501c3. Our whole goal in life is to communicate, to promote communication and relationships between families like you and district leadership, all with the goal of advocating for the highest quality education for every student. Really, I would say we do 2 things. So we provide information, and then we give you access to each other. And okay, so now I'm going to go into my board updates because we're doing fine on time, but we have other things happening today that are very exciting, which is when this is over, it's probably going to start closer to 11. And that should say 12:15, sorry, and not AM, if it's 12:15. We're going to be here for like an hour after this meeting, hearing all about the booster guidelines. Dr. Sakos and Mr. Buzon were really in charge of them, and they will answer all of your questions and hopefully put everyone's mind at ease, because I know maybe that's not the state that everyone's in. Anyway, that's happening after this meeting. Ignore the times on there.
I'm sorry, what time are we starting? Because
Around 11 o'clock, and it'll probably be about an hour. Okay, so there's also tomorrow. Yeah. Probably. I told them 10.
10:30, that 10:45 time was changed to 10:30, so now
I did not send out 10:30, so I'm sorry you had that communication. But yes, I told them that that people would be coming around 10:45, and so they'll be here to talk to you. But that's when it's happening. And I'm sorry 10:30 got out there. That did not come from me. Okay. Tomorrow there is a community partnership event with SUSD in the community on suicide prevention. It's happening at the Museum of the West in downtown Scottsdale. Saguaro is having a Sisters in STEM event, so not this Saturday, but the one after that, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Saguaro High School. There's a lot of really cool activities listed on the bottom of this slide, so if that's of interest to you, pass that around your school. All right, the October SUSD meeting will be on facilities, and it's also going to be on the bond. So there will be a bond on the ballot later this fall. So we're going to hear from Dennis Roller about what the bond is, what it funds, what it's done in the past, like what the district has used previous bonds for, and then kind of what they're thinking they might use this future one for. We'll also have a very brief legislature update. We've done this before in January when the legislature is in session, and that's kind of like drinking from a fire hose because all the bills are already in progress, and that's what you focus on. So this is going to be an information session before everything gets very chaotic and starts going very fast when the legislature is in session. All right, and that's an evening meeting here, Wednesday, October 22nd at 6 o'clock. Later in November, we're not having a general meeting in the month of November, but we are going to offer a kind of like a book club chat with Dr. Menzel, probably with one other guest from the district who I'm working on. And we're going to read and talk about the book, The Disengaged Teen. And that'll be November 13th, which I think is a Thursday, and that'll just be an hour and in room D. And this will not be live streamed, so you have to show up, read the book and show up in person. Book is at both Phoenix and Scottsdale public libraries, and then it's also available wherever books are sold. Okay, and then our next meeting our last general meeting for this semester is on December 10th. This is also going to be an evening meeting, and then the topic is going to be school repurposing. We will also, by that point, should have the demographic study and the results will be shared there as well. Okay, our budget update. So last meeting we showed you what our budget was. It's pretty small. It's about just over $2,000. We only spend money on operating costs. So our biggest expense is the liability insurance we have to carry to reserve this room for meetings and events like this. We have email, website hosting fees, things like that. Also in the email you're going to get, we will be reminding you that we are a 501c3, wholly reliant on donations, and we'll be asking for voluntary contributions if you feel like that would be worth it. Here is a visual representation of what we spend money on. Again, none of the money goes to any human. It's just really just, website, insurance to book, licensing through the state, things like that. Yeah, and historically, schools have given $100. Again, it's voluntary. I can't emphasize that enough. It's voluntary. We can provide receipts. We do, we are a 501c3 in good standing, so that's also available. Okay, so that is it. If you have any questions about anything, you can always email president@Scottsdale Parent Council, and I will, if I can't answer your question, I'll connect you with someone who can. All right, so we have a little bit of a break now before the booster guideline session.